myself a promise. I won't quit, keep going till I got it. I won't give up till I'm on top, yeah. You know I'm always honest, there ain't no way I'm ever stopping. I won't quit, keep going till I got it. I won't give up till I'm on top, yeah.
Alrighty, welcome back everyone. This is Rangadad. This is not financial advice, just the way I'm looking at the market. Sorry for the month or so hiatus. Still been trying to get things sorted over here in Thailand and had a fair bit on work-wise. So the kids are in school now though, so I should be able to do these most days now. Yeah, I guess the other thing too, I do at least do written thoughts in the Datapedia Discord. There's a link in the description if you're interested in that. I do post there sort of at least once a day normally. If you want to keep up to date with what I'm thinking, but yeah, this is literally just what I'm thinking. This is not financial advice. So anyway, let's get into it. It's obviously been a bit bouncy. I think the last time was literally about a month ago, about here, and we talked about it being potentially a bit bouncy. I also thought at that stage down here, I thought we were actually going to reject, but yeah, push through. Didn't quite make that new high and didn't sort of, sorry, I think we did actually make a new high, didn't we? Yeah, we did make a new high, but we didn't push the trend line, which I was a little bit surprised about. I thought we might hit the sort of the 115, blow through and then reject. But yeah, at this stage, we're back into a pretty decent range. And from what I'm seeing, this one here I identified after we bounced off that level there, it just seemed like it was going to be a pretty decent area to range in, given there was this little doji here and lots of support off it there. Value area high is still obviously pretty important to us on to the downside. It looks like at the moment Bitcoin does want to come back up and retest at least the top of this. Don't be surprised if we get a move through this and potentially even a small new high. I mean, we could even test this level here, but actually, based on what I'm seeing at the moment, if we do get a move like that, I am expecting it to only have maybe 1 or 2 daily closes above that and then pull back below and potentially just straight back into this range. There is a lot of volatility out there in the markets. The markets are bouncy as hell, just on all the global uncertainties and war, and the markets are pretty silly at the moment. So this is obviously a good level here for a bounce as well with the volume node. Yeah, it's finding it hard to go too high off this though, and like it's not following through with any massive conviction. Like yesterday, that was a great run up. I thought we may actually tap into the top of that range yesterday, but like here, it's actually on the 1 hour, it's back below the 13 EMA. Obviously, it found some support off the 200 EMA, but it actually looks like it's going to roll over, or at least keep going down for a little bit. It may still find some support around this 200 EMA. If it doesn't, if we do break through and retest that, then you're probably, well, you're at least looking at the middle of this range again, back into the 1048, which seems a little nuts, but that's what war can do to you too. Has left a decent amount of vectors up here though, so I am still leaning towards this being potentially just another bounce off the 50 EMA on the 1 hour and a move back up into here. Really hard to tell at the moment. It is super sensitive to everything going on. Yeah, there is a lot of investment into Bitcoin in particular from institutions now. Like there's another 60 companies that have put it onto their balance sheet just recently. The thing is about that is it seems to be a bit of a topping signal most of the time. This here is something I wanted to mention. So, and I've been talking about this a little bit in the Discord. Like this is a massive closure of longs, right? They started closing them 17th of April, and basically we've been net short, well, net closure of BTC USD longs on Bitfinex since that point. And interestingly, I put a stochastic momentum indicator on this, and there's pretty good correlation with, like, once we actually break into sort of this area, it's not necessarily the minus 40, but generally once you're above the minus 40, you'd be looking for shorts, or it's an indication that the market is going to break down relatively soon. It's because when these guys actually start accumulating again, they're generally accumulating on the way down. For the most part, that's when they tend to buy. So it's not a perfect read, but after this much of a sell-off, it's actually a good sign that we're putting in a top pretty soon. So we have started to have a little tick up. We definitely had a more, I guess, decisive sell-off. Like this stochastic momentum just hit the floor and stayed there rather than bouncing around like this did. So, but I guess the point is here, we have started to have a few green days on BTC USD longs, which is starting to suggest that the guys that are longing Bitcoin are starting to get interested in it again. Does that mean Bitcoin's going to go up from here? Actually, no. Like it means, yeah, you're probably in a choppy area, and it's probably getting ready to sell off, because generally they're accumulating this much longs as Bitcoin is really dropping severely. Okay. So I'll be watching that pretty keenly. I do still think we're in, like, it just coincides with the fact that we've started in this range here. So I do expect this range to keep going. We could have sweeps well into this area here, into the point of control around 96. And we could have bounces outside up into the new all-time highs, up into the 115, even the 120. 120, interestingly, with Crown's Crypto Cave, he does some pretty, I like his analysis. It's very quant-based. And he's got a few targets up around, or a fair bit of confluence up around 120 as well. So wouldn't surprise me if we hit it, but I doubt we'll spend much time up there and much time beyond that if we do go beyond it. Interestingly, we did get back above, I think we talked about this at the time, but for the first time ever, we've got back above the bullish support line on Bitcoin. Well, total crypto market cap versus stable coins. So this is the first time that we've actually broken below and then reclaimed that level. And we have retested it and bounced away again. So we've kind of broken that trend, which is really interesting. I don't know whether it's anything to do with Circle's IPO and a bit of interest coming in that regard, but it's interesting nonetheless. So what that means is there's still sort of more interest in crypto than there is in stable coins at the moment. And it's still finding support here on the 200 EMA. Like, it doesn't look particularly bad. And I think like this trend line here, tying in those two previous highs, if we do make a run up and we actually intersect that, particularly at that support level, like that's a pretty decent horizontal level. It has had a fair bit of bouncing off that. Then that would be, I suspect, a pretty interesting time for the markets. Like if we're hitting that at around 120 on BTC, if we get to that, or even if we're hitting that at 115, I'd be looking at this pretty closely thinking, okay, if this turns over, then I'd say that's the local top, and I'd be expecting a fairly decent sell-off from that point. Sol's at its point of control for this big range that we've been in here. It needs to hold this level. I think if Sol doesn't hold this level, 120 is pretty well locked in. And yeah, at the moment, it's not looking too bad. Momentum could turn up. If BBWP increases as momentum crosses, then it actually could get back up to these levels, at least the 187 sort of level. 202 is another interesting level, but I think there isn't much reason on the daily to get back to that level. We've got this wick up here, which is a pretty juicy wick, but man, I would be surprised if Sol gets back up to that level. Even on the hourly, I'm not sure that there's a hell of a lot of vector candles up beyond sort of the 202, even the 187. Sorry, just got to scroll back through here a bit. So even that's not a vector candle on the hourly. There's a little bit here up at 208. So if we do break 188, I would suspect sort of 288, even up into the 215, 216 level would be a good target. There's a couple up here, 224. Yeah, that one's been reclaimed. Little bit of action up there, around 240. And there's these couple here on the hourly. So yeah, look, it is possible. We'd have to have a pretty buoyant market for that to happen. Like just something massive would have to happen to crypto to push it to those levels. And I think Bitcoin would have to be at 120, potentially even more. Anyway, so Sol is a tricky one. Has left a vector up here, but it is below its 200 EMA as well. You know, it's Coiling below a moving average like that's never really a great sign. XRP, not super interested in XRP. It's going to be crazy choppy when Bitcoin's crazy choppy. Interestingly, Pi had a big run the other day. Yeah, it's mental as well. LTC. A lot of these are putting in like big time lower highs on weekly charts and stuff like that. It's not looking great for a lot of these. As I've said before, I think a lot of coins are going to start to be valued based on what actual revenue they're generating. Yeah, Ethereum on the weekly still looks okay. Actually looks like potentially holding and expanding up. Now, on the daily, it's kind of putting in a bit of a Wyckoff here. Whether it's distribution or accumulation sort of remains to be seen. We've got a little bit of a sweep here. This fake out up here generally is not a great thing. Generally, when I see that, I lean towards distribution. But if we do break above sort of the 2765 level and confirm above, then even that level there, the 2800 with confirmation should see us actually, I think this is a pretty good target, up around the 3200. The vector candles finish at about 3100, so be aware of that. But this was a pretty good trend line, connecting these two highs, connecting not necessarily the highs here, but it was support, bounced off a couple of times, just couldn't hold above that level. Sort of rejected that level again, copped this high here, nearly got that high. It's not a bad trend line, and I think that's actually a pretty good target. To the downside, obviously we've got some pretty decent vector candles here. We've got the point of control here. It seems to want to hold the value area high though at the moment. So just sort of chopping through this range. You're looking for a break either way of that range. Break below, I don't see it stopping before 1800. Break above, which there is a fair bit of accumulation on ETH at the moment. I do actually expect it to push a bit higher, but it's not confirmed at the moment, obviously. Now, CME is quite interesting at the moment. Bit of a gap down, gap up, gap down. It's never a great thing, but we've pretty well closed all these gaps up here now. Do have a gap down here, 96, which is interesting confluence with the point of control on Bybit. Another gap down here too. So I'm still leaning towards, if we're breaking back out of this range to the downside, it's going to be because there's something major wrong with the global markets, and we probably will come right back into at least the 91 level, and potentially it's the start of a bear market. All right, I'll have a quick look at a few of the key charts here. So NASDAQ, we did actually have an island reversal on the NASDAQ. So there's only a 1 day island reversal, but gap down, gap up. Still in the bullish control zone, and BBWP is reset. So It's one thing, island reversals like this, gap down, gap up, can generally lead to more upside. And, you know, it's pretty common that they lead to more upside. Yeah, it's hard to be bearish on this yet. We are reclaiming, or we have reclaimed this vector candle here at the high. That, to me, suggests that, yes, we can head down if we want. But it kind of looks like we may even push just into this trend line here. I'd be expecting some major resistance of that trend line, though. I think it's even kind of... There's probably another trend line in here, actually, that it's retesting at the moment. Yeah. I don't think it's a super strong one if there is, but that was an interesting sort of retest of that particular trend line too. And we are wedging. So break below this, it's probably going to be pretty severe to the downside. You would expect at least that gap close there into 20,200. Even a little bit lower. Yeah, we left so many gaps on the way up. Whenever the next correction is, it's pretty well cycle top, I would say. Equal weight. Again, it's basically recovered this vector. It's not making new highs, new local highs yet. So that's sort of, neither is the main one though. After hours today, we're actually heading back down, but again, it's sort of BBWP's reset. If we stay in the bullish control zone and we have another upside, could be a decent little push. Equal weight Qs. Sorry, that wasn't equal weight. That was just the Qs before. This is the equal weight. So pretty similar though. It's holding above a trend line. It's recovered this vector. Interestingly, it did make new highs back here rather than a lower high. But realistically, it needs to really push higher into at least this level on 98 for the Nasdaq to actually run into that topside trend line. I mean, the stochastic momentum is to the downside at the moment, so beware of that, but pretty decent volume candle yesterday. It's just where that, one thing, check out FX Evolution's videos where he goes through the dark pools on some of the big S&P 500 ETFs and stuff like that. There have been some massive dark pool transactions come through at the highs. So it kind of, again, I am sort of leaning towards downside soon. These guys don't necessarily need to pick the tops, but they are pretty good at placing trades that then turn markets. So yeah, similar with SPY. SPY, I guess you could call that vector candle recovery, but it's interesting when we were talking about that way back in here and you talk about vector candle recovery back up here when it's down here and you think that's just seems way off. And we've pretty well done it straight away. In terms of macro timing, that's pretty well straight away. Again, vector candle recovery could push a little bit higher, but you kind of expect downside after that. This run is mainly retail too. Let's go and have a quick look while we're talking about this one here, Sentiment Trader. So smart money has started to pick up again. They got back to a pretty good reset level, and retail is sort of all in at the moment, very bullish. So the fact that these guys have started to pick up, I'd kind of expect the price to come back a bit more. If we do get another little higher, I'd actually expect them to come back down and like do a full reset back into that 0.3 level. But you know, this has been a pretty major run up and a pretty good sell down by smart money. So just be aware of that they're pretty much waiting for a pullback at the moment. Another thing, like this week, obviously Trump's heading back to the Situation Room. Sounds very let's call it interesting. It's neither good nor bad until we actually get the news, but it's sort of, economic news has been a bit mixed lately. The real thing this week will be Bank of Japan policy rate. They haven't done it yet. The Japanese just don't give a defined time, and you get surprised at any time, so just be aware of that. If they increase rates, then that could shift a few things. At the moment, a lot of money seems to have gone into euro. You could see a shift out of euro and into the Japanese yen. Bank of Japan, so press conference. The thing, like core retail sales will be interesting, but I think really everyone's going to be waiting this week for unemployment claims, but then obviously the federal funds rate decision on, well, it's my Thursday, but actually it's Wednesday night or Wednesday morning US time. So that I think will be the big market mover. I don't think it, I think they will keep it on hold unless something major happens between now and then. There are some reasons they could cut it, but at this stage, they're supporting the economy with pumping funds in other ways, like buying bonds and stuff like that. So, you know, I think they're going to be reluctant to cut it, and I think that's the poly market odds are for that as well. Just into the volume leaders, IBIT, big dark pool transaction before the drop last night. Like, these guys control the market. You can't tell me they don't know something when they're transacting at these levels and the market just goes their way. Yeah, I think we have had a lot of volume coming through at the highs recently as well. Come on. So some big trades here before big drops. Interestingly though, like, I was very surprised. Like, we had a massive trade there, the biggest ever on IBIT, and then we went down. I was very surprised we didn't get a big trade. Like, it didn't come through in the top 10 or even the top 20, I don't think. Largest trades anywhere near this low. You can see all the interest sort of, this has been a defended zone, a bit of a buy zone in here, and there was just nothing there. That really surprised me. It's kind of, it made me think that, okay, this is a weird run up. There's nothing really to suggest that this should be happening. And then we were topping around the top of that channel. at that time, and we pulled back. So, but yeah, that definitely coincided with the middle of that channel, and now it's a big trade. Yeah, we may actually get more of a pullback. Anyway, I'm not going to go into any other volume stuff. Check out FX Evolution's videos. He looks at a few key ones, and there have been a lot of big trades around the tops. One thing I wanted to point out too, CoinGlass has got this new chart, CoinGlass Legend. I get conflicting readings between it and the normal CoinGlass charts, particularly when you're looking at the top trader long short accounts and positions. So this is basically saying top traders are putting in longs at the moment, but they are net short in terms of their accounts. This sort of, and like, if you look at the CoinGlass Legend, look at the same indicator, top trader long short positions. Oh, they're both positions. Why have I got both positions there? Shit. I thought I had something else. Sorry. Just let me. What the fuck are the indicators? Oh, there. Yeah. Why isn't that coming up? That's weird. Bear with me. Top trader long short accounts. There we go. Actually changed this to be line chart. So yeah, I guess that does coincide. Sorry, that scratch what I just said there. That's good. The CVD though, I can't seem to get CVD to really line up. I guess it's doing the futures CVD rather than the spot CVD. And as you know, I think spot CVD gives a better indication of overall trend. And at the moment, we're still trending down. So future CVD can still, I guess, show some support for a short-term move up. But when spot starts to really, or doesn't really follow it and then starts to drop hard, then chances are it's going down more. All right, so yeah, generally this is still suggesting at the moment downside, but I have been using this more because you can get the large trades, and as you can see, some large trade clusters there now. It seems to suggest these were buyers at the top, but one thing about the CoinGlass Legend, even the normal CoinGlass chart, is they don't give you a lot of information on the different indicators. At least I haven't been able to find them in any of their help or anything like that. So it doesn't really tell you if red means buy or sell or what. You just got to guess, I think. Because these could be liquidations, not necessarily like effectively that would be a buy if it's a short liquidation, which would make sense. There was some pretty decent liquidations up here for, what was that, 380 Bitcoin, 390 Bitcoin. So yeah, I wouldn't pay too much attention to the color of the circles there on the large trades, but yeah, it's interesting nonetheless. And yeah, it's not a bad chart. I do like this whale index though, and the interesting thing about the whale index at the moment, it hasn't actually dropped with this drop on Bitcoin. So to me, that suggests there is still some support there. All right. And yeah, we have started to see them longing again through this drop. So it could just be a temporary drop, but just got to be careful with the news today. I think liquidation heat map, that was a pretty good recovery area. I said in the Discord that I thought we might pull back a bit harder. It didn't quite get to the 106 I thought it might, but I also suggested that given the strength of this move, it might only sort of go sideways a bit. And yeah, we got another move to the upside. So at the moment, though, this is looking a little nasty to come back in, potentially into this 105.5. There is some decent support levels around there. If we go out a bit further, 1 month, that's a pretty good level there, 600 million. Don't often see that kind of volume. So I suspect we will attempt to sweep this and potentially have that breakout to the upside of the channel. But especially looking at this, there's way more liquidity to the upside, short-term liquidity to the upside than there is to the downside at the moment. Just go out a little bit further, see if we can pick up. Yeah. So even on this chart, that is a bit more yellow up here, up into these levels. Don't have a lot up into the 115, but once we start breaking these levels again and start sweeping the liquidity, you tend to see more shorts come in and more people selling at the highs, some of the big guys selling, and that's when you'll see it just sort of, the liquidity will come in and you'll see it continue through. But yeah, it's pretty well where we're sitting at the moment. So IWM's not looking great, and that's kind of, it is above the 200 EMA though. So this could be just a decent retest of the 200 EMA. And IWM up into 220 to 225 would basically see the majority of the vector candles recovered. I think as long as it holds this sort of, this trend at the moment, need to see a bit of a turnaround pretty quickly though, I think. What's that? Dividends. Ah, okay. Yeah. So XLY, XLP, it's actually trending up. It's not. This thing could, whichever way it breaks, it's going to break pretty hard. That's a full reset of BBWP. This could be an accumulation zone. That's interesting. So consumer staples is kind of just sideways on the equal weight. No real read there at all. Consumer discretionary is looking more like it's in an uptrend at the moment, but stochastic momentum, if we switch to the upside, yeah, XLY, XLP could go, could suggest more upside. Equal weight. Not a great read, but this thing's above its key moving averages. Definitely hasn't made the same high comparatively as what the actual stock market has. Yeah, it's kind of in no man's land at the moment. This is obviously still trending down. So consumer staples versus SPY, that is still pulling back, which suggests that there could be a little bit more left in SPY yet. And realistically, if we come down and touch this trend, touch this trend line, was a previous support level and resistance level around here as well. So a little bit more upside on the market, and then bounce from here would basically, again, be a pretty decent topping signal. It would be vector candle recovery in there as well. Somewhere around those two support lines, I think, is going to be pretty key. And I'd kind of be expecting a pullback from those levels. Yeah, the equal weight version of that is it could come back down a little bit further as well. Just sweep this area. Bit more of a vector candle recovery, although you could say that's recovered. So, but we do have this one here. Anyway, that's kind of key levels. Big head and shoulders here. If that actually breaks down, and we could actually come into this level here, that head and shoulders, if it plays out. So it could be a massive, like that would be a huge upside on the markets, which logically doesn't make sense, but yeah, you could be into that sort of level there. I'm going to leave that there just in case, but that would seem ridiculous. I don't know how that would happen. There's just so much leverage in the market. Credit default swaps are struggling. Yeah, it's doesn't look likely, but KRE is broken back below this trend line as well, back below its 200 moving average and its 50. That's a fairly negative sign. So watching regional banking and the financials in particular. Financials in general are holding up a little bit better. I think they did actually close this gap, but they didn't. I wouldn't call that a vector candle recovery. So again, a little run up, recover that, and then a break to the downside would be pretty nasty. It could also be a gigantic Wyckoff accumulation. So I doubt it, but unfortunately, home construction is still not really recovering key levels. So this is quite bearish. However, the real estate market isn't really performing. Breaking new highs again, I would be fairly bearish on the market. In general, like 1 foot out the door kind of thing. Not necessarily bearish on the market. Don't think it really governs the market, but it just means you've got to be a bit more careful. SMH is another one where it's basically vector candle recovery on this. It's closed all the gaps to there, but there is still a gap above in here. So 273 on SMH, again, another couple of days of upside. Could, like if there's good news out of whatever Trump's doing at the moment, we could actually see that close. And that would be a pretty key turning point for the market, I would think. DJR Gold still struggling to recover key areas as well. Same with DJT Gold. It's holding up a bit better. So transport sector is probably, yeah, it's looking okay, not great. Generally, that's a sign that the market's still not super healthy. Realistically, you want this to be roaring to the upside if you're in a bull market, proper bull market. VIX did break back below that trend line, back above it for a day, but for the time being, the VIX is kind of it might start trending up. So again, choppy is the order of the day. The skew's finally got some action. So skew is suggesting more upside, and that's the biggest move we've had on skew with the whole time since the bottom of the market. At one stage, I didn't think it was ever going to go up again, but a couple more days of up on skew could see us hit those key levels that we were talking about. Up into this trend line would be a very good level. Putting in a lower high there would be reminiscent of some of the bigger corrections that we've seen, like lower high, bam, the market just tanked after that. So be aware of that. If you can't see that, sorry, but that's what I'm looking at. The VIX 1 day as well, it's been pretty low, pretty consistently low. Generally when this is low, the markets are up. So waiting for like a real spike on this VIX, the 1 day VIX, I think if the VIX 1 day sort of confirms above 21.5, then that's again going to be confluence to confirm that we're probably going further down. I'll just do advanced decline line on the S&P 500. Where is it? Where is it? There. It's actually making new highs too. So there's nothing on the advanced decline line that's really suggesting at the moment we're going to break down. Sort of closures below these moving averages, then you're probably going to start looking at more downside and more significant downside. That can be a good early indicator as well, so just keep an eye on that. What have we got? Not going to worry about global markets at the moment. TLT. So TLT sort of still in a downtrend. It's getting a lot of support around this area though. It just seems to be an accumulation level at the moment on TLT. Again, dropping a little bit as the market goes up, particularly when it doesn't look like the Fed's going to increase rates. High yield junk still going with the market, I would say, at the moment. Decent gap here on a vector candle as well, so more upside potential there. Bonds, I think that's the Australian bond ones. Yeah, oh no, something different. But that's still going with it as well. LQDIF, still going with it, but definitely subdued compared to the market. So again, it's suggesting that this could just be, well, the next high is potentially going to lead to bigger downside. I think the market's just waiting for something to, like a reason to drop. Yields are pretty flat. 30-year, like the bond guys did have a bit of a hissy fit recently, but they seem to have calmed down a bit, although it's heading back up at the moment. 5% is a pretty key level, like makes a massive difference to the US debt repayments. The other interesting one I wanted to show, I saw this recently. So this pullback that we had, when you look at the inflation adjusted by month, S&P 500, we actually pulled back and hit the same level that it was at in November 21. I wish I had seen that when we were hitting those levels, but this is I wouldn't say it's a lagging indicator, but it's one that I'm more looking at for overall macro bottoms, and I don't think that's a macro bottom. Interestingly though, when we did pull back in 21, 22, we did hit the previous high there before COVID as well, and then bounce. So look, looking at this chart, you'd be saying, well, okay, we could actually be going to another high here. Just something to keep in mind. I'm not saying that that's actually the case. Copper did go with the market too on this pump. So it's been pretty volatile though, copper. Yeah, very bouncy. It's kind of not convincing me that we're going to new all-time highs on the market. It's closed the gap, and that's about it. Gold, yeah, gold's trending up. Like momentum-wise, it's potentially going to roll over, but I actually kind of expect gold to at least hit 3,500 again, and potentially 4,000 by the end of the year, particularly if we get any sort of global issues. Silver actually finally had a breakout against gold recently as well, so I think it's pulled back a little. Oh, it's just going sideways, so a bit of consolidation here. I actually think silver will probably go again. It's got a way to go. I don't think it's even at its all-time highs yet. Oh, maybe it is. Let's try this one. It's not. When you're going against the Great Britain pound, it's not yet at all-time highs, so could still go a bit higher there. Yeah, that chart just doesn't go back far enough. But when you compare silver to gold, historically it is very cheap. So I'm holding more silver than gold in my retirement fund at the moment. We just need to break through that. If we break through this 200 EMA, then silver could go on a pretty decent run, especially compared to gold. So just be aware of that. Breakdowns could get nasty. Oil went nuts on the news of the conflict, but at the same time, it was kind of showing a pretty decent basing structure before that. So well done to anyone who got in low. Pretty big breakout. It's still pretty subdued though, so we'll see how we go. With that, I think I might end it early. Dixie's still struggling. It's probably got a fair bit to come actually to the downside. At least 96.5. I'd probably expect it to come back a little bit further, probably into 96. Which should pave the way for a little bit more upside on Bitcoin and stocks, which means probably a little bit of downside on gold in the short term. But yeah, look, global liquidity is still sort of trending up, I would say. Break below this 50 EMA and it could get interesting. But at the moment, we are still seeing a bit of liquidity come into the markets. Enough to support a little bit of a run. Mag 7's still going okay. Pretty well recovered these vector candles though. So beyond that, pullbacks are looking likely. So once we've recovered these vectors, I'd just be very careful about market pullbacks. And especially after hours moves too. So what I'm actually expecting is after hours upside and then downside move in the actual sessions. Similar to what we had here, running down this area. We got a lot of that. That's about it really. So I guess to summarize everything, probably maybe a little bit more of a grind to the upside. It is a dull market. It's hard to short a dull market, but in general, Bitcoin is kind of looking like It's not looking super strong for a massive breakout, but 115 to 120 wouldn't surprise me, at least on a quick move, and then we start the downside. That seems to be the most logical scenario. If we reject the top of this channel again, then I'd actually expect us to come back down to the bottom of the channel next time and potentially sweep this point of control. There's a fair bit of liquidity down around 96.5. But at that point, I would expect to bounce up. I'd be interested to see what happens at this volume area node, which is probably going to be around the middle of the channel. And then we'll see where we go from there. It's just a matter of whether we go upside or downside first. And at the moment, we're above 13 EMA on the daily, so we've still got to be a little bit more biased towards the upside. All right, catch us later.